Again, we're going to follow the same rules. The first person to respond to the question will have 1 minute to respond. The response will get 30 seconds, and if you have a rebuttal, you'll have 15 seconds. We'll do 1 minute introductions and 1 minute closing remarks. Introductions with Mr. Michael Delchero.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I would like to thank RCM and the volunteers for being here this evening. My name is Michael Delchero, and I'm a graduate here of Roswell High School from 30 years ago. I live in Habersham Downs with my wife here and our 3 sons. We also started a small Roswell-based business called Delchero Group, where we focus on talent acquisition and real estate services. I'm currently a global talent acquisition partner with Microsoft and a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors. Here locally, volunteerism is very significant for me. I'm very well plugged in to viewing city council meetings. I was co-president to the Roswell High School Band Boosters Association, member of Roswell Next, and volunteer for the Roswell Day of Hope. I got my bachelor's degree from Georgia State University. I'm here to be a positive voice for Roswell. Roswell is great, and I'm here to make it greater. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Yolanda Freeman.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Yolanda Freeman. I'm a single mother that lives in Roswell. I have 3 children, 2 adult children, and I have 1 junior at Centennial High School. I wanted to be on city council because I want to make a difference. I want to see unity and diversity in our community. I'm a school lunch lady. I'm in the schools every day. I'm a substitute, a floater. So I'm in every different school daily in Roswell serving our youth food. You wouldn't believe the stories I hear from our youth, the parents that I talk to. People are ready for change. We need a lot of things that need to be done in our community to strengthen it because they love their community and they want to make a difference. And we can start with our youth. I have a vision for having youth be a part. I'm sorry. Thank you.
May go 15.
Okay. I have a vision for our youth to start coming to city council meetings, learn about it. Let's have mock city council, mock things. If you want to be a judge, have a mock judge for you. If they want to be a mayor, let them spend a day. Let's have a hangout day with the mayor. Let's do something to empower our youth to keep them out of trouble. And I'm just passionate about serving and volunteering for Roswell.
Thank you. And then we have William Morthland.
Good evening. I'm Willie Morthland, running for City Council Post 5. I decided to run for the City Council because I want to improve Roswell's future. I'm a proud parent of 2 wonderful children who are the centers of my universe. They're basically into everything Roswell has to offer. This is one of the things that really stood out to my wife and me when we were comparing different places to call home. This is something special about Roswell. From its warm, welcoming people, to its natural assets, to its historic charm that reminds me of my birthplace of Selma. However, with these characteristics comes great responsibility. The responsibility of moving our town forward as one cohesive unit, not divided due to contentious local government. We as adults sitting in this room tonight must set the example of good governance for a common goal to enable our future generations future prosperity.
Thank you. Our questions today for all seats come from members of the Roswell community themselves. For our first question, I'll start with Mr. Delchero. Roswell is a beautiful place to live, but living here is becoming more expensive. Pricing, availability, property taxes, and rising city, county, state operating costs can make buying a home difficult, especially for young adults, working poor, and elder residents. What are your ideas on addressing our affordable housing issues?
Good question. Thank you very much. So one of my focus areas that you will see online at my website, michaeldforroswell.com, is to keep growth sensible here for us in Roswell. I want to preserve Roswell's small town feel by supporting development that fits a unique local character. I can't help it, being a recruiter, that we have to recruit businesses as well to be good contributors and good neighbors to our community. I continue support for initiatives as well for the newly minted Historic District Master Plan that'll continue to revitalize and renew our downtown. And I'll seek out and implement proposals as well when it comes to repurposing our abandoned shopping centers and to get rid of blight. So that's just the start of my plan for growth.
Thank you. Yolanda?
Yes, my plan of growth for the city would be for Roswell to have more higher paying jobs and probably pair up internship jobs with young people moving to the city, just graduating from college, with the companies. It also would be nice if we would have some financial classes to work with our credit, work with, just mentoring you on buying a home and all the responsibilities.
Mr. Marthland?
Future growth for Roswell is an extremely important topic, because if you're not growing in the right way, you're regressing. I'm from a very depressed area in Alabama, which is one of the reasons I've gotten involved in future planning for Roswell. I don't want to leave behind a Roswell that is not as inclusive and prosperous as the Roswell we know today. Positive organic growth does not happen by accident. It takes an intentional effort on the part of city decision makers, like the city council, to ensure this happens.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Ms. Freeman. Future projections show tremendous growth in electric vehicles, upwards to 18.1 million by 2030, which will aid clean air initiatives. Do you support installing more EV fast charging around Roswell, and have you given thought to where these would be located?
Yes, I think I would support that because that's the way of the future. We would have to install more of the charging machines. And I just think that we can start our youth in that direction as well, training them for careers in that avenue so that they can jump aboard, be a part of city council and the action in Roswell to put us on the list. Probably let us have one of those battery companies here.
Thank you. Mr. Delchero?
Thank you. So when it comes to our environment and being like ahead of the curve, it's always good to look around you to other municipalities. They're incubators. We should be able to go ahead and reach out and be humble to look for ideas. At the same time, one of my other focus areas here of my platform is to keep Roswell beautiful. It's our community. We have a gem, the Chattahoochee River. We need to take care of our parks and our rivers, okay? And one of my big focus areas to ensure we continue support of our Parks and Recreation Department, as well as moving forward with our River Parks Master Plan as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marthland?
Question?
Yes. Future projections show tremendous growth in electric vehicles, upwards to 18.1 million by 2030, which will aid Clean Air Act initiatives. Do you support installing more EV fast charging around Roswell, and have you given thought to where these would be located?
Certainly. The recharging batteries are the way for the future. It's pretty understandable that this is where the automobiles like the Tesla are coming from and coming to our community. The stations can certainly be provided by the city and all the parks and recs, just like we've had before. But one thing that I'd like to look at is doing a private partnership with maybe some gas stations, putting the charging stations in the parking lot. That would be a very good economic driver for gas stations. That would be a nice way to do it.
Thank you. And Mr. Morthland, we'll start with you for this next question. What do you plan to do to promote social and racial justice in our communities?
Inclusivity. I live inclusively on a daily basis. My wife is a first-generation American from parents that earned their United States citizenship through service. My father-in-law served for many years in the bowels of the United States Naval Destroyer, working his way up to managing the flight deck. My mother-in-law earned her citizenship through a 25-year career of nursing service to the local hospitals in Florida. My brother-in-law is preparing for retirement after 20 years of naval service, most recently stationed in Italy. My children are a wonderful mix, Scotch-Irish heritage complementing with my wife's Filipino roots. I understand how to be inclusive and diverse through my daily interactions. I'll apply these principles to the city's needs as we strive to be an inclusive society and local government.
Thank you. Mr. Del Chero.
Thank you. This is one of my favorite topics, and thank you, Will, for sharing. I'm a first-generation American. Born in the U.S. My dad came here from Italy with a trunk this big. He left everything behind in 1955 to start the American dream. Trying to go ahead and marginalize others, there's no place for it. I went to Georgia State University. It's one of the top 5% of the universities in the U.S. for ethnic and racial diversity. And if I get elected as Post 5 council member, I will be committed to ensure that we include everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could please just speak up a little bit louder so
Okay.
that our audience at home can hear you when you're responding. Thank you.
Please repeat
And-
the question.
Yes. What would you do to promote social and racial justice in our community?
In our community, I would see if I could talk to the police department here, and maybe the fire department, and I would love to, I have a vision of empowering the youth just by having like a Bridge the Gap program. Let the high school, the Roswell High School, Centennial High School, let them have basketball game and play sports with police officers. Because if the kids are getting in trouble all the time, or if they're doing things that are negative, if you had one positive interaction with the police officer, if the police officer has seen you in the community, if he played basketball with you, you guys joked and played around, he might can tell you, don't get in that car and do what I hear you're saying you're gonna do. Just those little things that can make a difference. So I want our youth, I want them to pair up with doctors, pair up with, you wanna be a nurse? Be with a nurse that day. Let a nurse spend time in Roswell with kids to empower them. And I just believe in having community organizations uniting people. Just having everybody know that we can all live here in peace. I moved here for opportunity. I lived in Saginaw, Michigan. We had problems with the Flint water. I moved here for opportunity. I moved here with one luggage. My daughter was going to Georgia State University. I came here to help her with the baby. She couldn't afford daycare in Roswell. I went to every daycare here trying to get a daycare for her baby. So she had to move back to Michigan. She has a great job now, but I would have loved if she could have got a job here in Roswell and I could be with my grandchild. So I just want to have more programs for daycare for people who can't afford this expensive daycare. Have programs. She would have loved to do anything in Roswell to stay here. And I don't want another grandmother to go through what I went through.
Thank you. Our next question for Mr. Del Chero. East Roswell has great access to the Chattahoochee River, and so much can be done to take advantage of that access. How would you replicate this access to the Chattahoochee in other areas of Roswell?
Well, you know, when it comes to our city infrastructure, we need to make sure we look at a strategic, holistic perspective. And on a side note, you know, we are one Roswell. And being here since the 80s, you know, certainly we have grown. And certainly there's been opportunities for us to figure out how to continue supporting our growing city. And where I believe what we can focus on is that we need to make sure that we can have ourselves to keep our traffic moving. Using our T-SPOS funds effectively, okay, on projects that will open up our roads and get access to the needed natural assets to our city. And we'll also work with the Georgia Department of Transportation as well too, in terms of looking at ways to improve areas such as our Georgia 400 and Holcomb Bridge corridor.
Thank you.
You got it, thank you.
Ms. Freeman?
Please repeat the question.
Absolutely. East Roswell has great access to the Chattahoochee River, and so much can be done to take advantage of that access. How would you replicate this access to the Chattahoochee River in other areas?
Basically, I would just get the word out in the community to everybody to ask for ideals, taking surveys, just checking with our community members, seeing what can they do to make a difference to help that situation.
Thank you.
We're going to expand the Parks and Recreation Service to bring more access to the riverfronts. We have the East Roswell, lots of shoreline, all the places that need access. I would put under the Parks and Recreation Department, partnering with the Department of Natural Resources to bring plenty of access to the people that can't get to it right now. It's going to be a great one.
Thank you. Just another quick reminder, just try to turn up the volume just a little bit. We want to make sure everybody at home can hear you. Our next question we'll pose to Ms. Freeman. What is the most significant challenge the city of Roswell is facing, and how will you address it?
The most significant problem is, I want to say safety. Probably not in the residential, in the neighborhoods, but I live in an apartment, so safety in the apartment areas. I will address it as far as the apartment, the homeowners. You guys, they have homeowner associations and they have a very strong network. But in apartments, we don't have that support. So I would like to have all the apartments in Roswell combined to have like a neighborhood association where each apartment complex could have a group where we would all come together and talk about our safety issues or any issues that we may not want the manager to know. Because you don't want to tell on your neighbor, you don't want your neighbor kicked out, but it might be something you guys could work out together in a group if we came to a common place where we could talk about these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Del Chero.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
that.
What is the most significant challenge the city of Roswell is facing, and how will you address it?
Thank you so much. I see here closely like a twofold discussion, and 30 seconds may not be enough, so I'll do the best I can. Real quick, the first one is growth. We need to be very intentional about it, as I said before, to preserve our small town charm. As I moved here back in 1986, to embrace that and also be able to take that forward to the future for future development that's unique to our local character. And the second thing, real quick, is also taking a good hard look to keep our traffic moving. As I stated earlier, leveraging our resources from the GDOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, to look at a strategy to help us moving forward and even potentially pull funds to help us get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morthland.
I would say accountability and transparency on the city council would be a great way of starting. In my experience as a bank examiner and auditor, we were charged with ensuring the governance of the institutions were sound. The depositors, the investors, and stakeholders depend on the fact their livelihoods were safe and protected. I'll do the same for Roswell. We must be protecting our assets through clear and concise, financially responsible decision-making policies.
Thank you. And our last question for the Seat 5 debate, I'll start with you, Mr. Morthland. Focusing on your own, what makes you a better candidate for Roswell than your opponents?
I would say leadership. With every successful team, you have a strong leader setting and living by example. Leadership for Roswell is imperative if we're going to continue to grow and thrive. My skill set is that I listen, weigh the facts, understand the outcomes of all potential scenarios, and make the best decision for the Roswell citizens. I learned these traits from the person I admire the most, which is my father. He instilled within his family something our society could use more, which is character. As he would always reference, the true merit of an individual is not what one does in front of people, but what one does when no one's watching. This is the cornerstone of character which yields great leaders.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, you know, there's a host of things I would love to share. When it comes to traits, it all starts with mindset. You can't train a mindset. You're going to be innately there in terms of being positive to take it forward. And that's one of the things I really feel I bring to bear. But as well, I have other traits. I coached Little League for many years. I can handle 6-year-olds around the ball field. But I also consider myself a coach in investing in others. In summary, my top 5 strengths, according to the Clifton Strengths Profile personality test: I'm an achiever, I'm strategic, I'm an includer, I bring context, and I'm a relator. Thank you.
Ms. Freeman?
Yes, I am a hands-on person, not social media, I'm a hands-on. I love to just dig in. I work behind the scenes. I'm always doing something behind the scenes to help someone. I think I can strengthen and expand on the City Council's diversity and inclusion task force. That's just one of my goals that I would really love to get with. And I'm just trustworthy, honest, I tell it like it is. I may not know a lot of things in a lot of other areas, but with the right person mentoring me, I think I could do wonderful things for Roswell because I love Roswell.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to closing remarks. Mr. Del Chero, you have 1 minute.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you to RCM again for hosting us this evening. Thank you to our moderator and timekeeper. I also like to thank my opponents, Yolanda and Will, for being here tonight. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified for Post 5. I'm going to run a positive campaign. And the 3 things I feel like that make up me as a uniquely qualified candidate is 1, my personal story, having lived here as far back as 1986. Once a Hornet, always a Hornet. 2, my career. I have built high-powered teams across the U.S. and locally of high-performing cultures. That's the signature of my recruiting experience. 3, my volunteerism. I frequently listen to the city council meetings. I've taken a proactive approach to build relationships across City Hall. I volunteer to the Roswell Day of Hope, which, by the way, is this coming Saturday. I'm here to be a positive voice for Roswell. Roswell is a great place, and I'm here to make it greater. To learn more about me, go to michaeldforroswell.com. A sign or donation would be there. If you can do that, I appreciate it. And don't forget to vote as early as October 12th for voting day, November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman, you have 1 minute.
Okay. I am your right choice to vote for. And I believe that because I believe in Roswell. If everybody I meet can feel the way I do, when all these new homes you're building here, when they come to Roswell, if we can do what we need to do to make them feel the way I feel about Roswell, we'll be a success. But we all have to work hard together to make this happen. And I know it can be done, and I think I can take the lead on that with working with a great group in Roswell to make a success.
Thank you. And Mr. Morthland?
I've always had a passion for civic duty. I'm running because I want to be the voice for Roswell residents and champion what is important to them and moving Roswell forward. I have financial experience as a state bank examiner and auditor, which is a benefit for the council. My experience will help ensure our city projects are on budget, stay within scope, and are completed on time. After speaking with many residents, I want to be sure the council represents the interest of its people. I'll only support responsible development, limiting high-density projects, which affects our already congested streets. I'll support development that promotes growth for the city without taking away from the charm of Roswell. I will lobby and deliver greater investments in our Parks and Recreation Department, as well as our heroes that work for the emergency response services. I will focus on restoring transparency, civility, and accountability on the council. I'm running because I want to help our community. I have no other hidden agenda. I promise to represent the interest of Roswell's greatest assets, its people.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here with us today, and thank our audience for tuning in. As a reminder, and you've heard it several times, early voting starts October 12th, and Election Day is November 2nd. Your vote is your voice. Your voice is vital, and we hope you'll make your voice heard this November. Thank you and good night.